Okay, I am so excited, Morgan, to have you on the show today. And I'd love to start at the beginning and have you just start by telling listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Harper Nichols. I am a writer and an artist. And ever since I was a kid, I've always loved to do creative things. And I was also a homeschool preacher's kid. I came from a really small church, small town, small family. I have one sister. So a lot of my world, at least in my kid brain, it felt really small. I felt like I was kind of like, oh, I felt kind of stuck a lot of times, and I think a lot of it had to do with other things. And I have dyslexia. I had a speech impediment as a kid, and I was also an introvert. It's really hard for me to make friends, and a lot of those struggles, which I feel like those are kind of my big struggles that I thought of and dealt with as a kid. I went into art and writing as a way of trying to process that and work through that. And of course I would not have used that language back then. But when I go back and I look at my journals and I look at things that I created, I was like, oh, I think that was my way of sharing, praying, of just trying to connect and find a sense of comfort and peace. And as I grew older, just watching my parents in ministry, they were just the kind of people, and still are, who just have their doors open to people and continue to just give time to people. And that was very influential for me as a kid, because early on, I didn't always understand it. I was always like, okay, can I just go up to my room and hang out while all these other people are here? And I would oftentimes how long is it going to be until someone notices that I went upstairs? So just like trying to recover. However, the thing that just kind of comes with watching my parents is, I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was like, when it comes to the topic of loss and grief, I haven't lost anyone in my immediate family. I still have my mom, my dad, my sister, my spouse, my child. And however, outside of that, just by the nature of my parents' vocation, I actually went to quite a few funerals as a young person, as a kid, and just seeing people cry and weep and just deal with those. I like to, I say I'm not the only person who said this, but just the concept of, we have different grievances. We have those like big G griefs, which is loss and death. And even though I may not have experienced that in my immediate family, it was always physically close, and it was close to me and where I was, and just sort of where my parents, their work and what they did with their lives. So that really, dealing with that, also feeling very creative at the same time, I think that kind of explains who I am today and how I ended up where I am. And that is just somebody who, for whatever reason, I think of things through color, I think of things through images, nature, flowers, mountains and music, lyrics, poetic ways. I think of all of those things. And at the same time, I know that there are people out there who don't feel heard, who don't feel seen, who feel like their stories don't matter or feel like their stories aren't moving forward. And I just I have a lot of heart for people in that place. I've been there, and people that I love have been there. So that's a bit of a Cliff Notes version of what I do. I've never quite shared it that way. That's something I've been thinking about more my childhood. And I'm like, wow, those stories they really do impact where I am today. So.
They matter. They do. They matter. And I think even in the last couple of years, I've began to see my life through that same lens of just seeing God use moments or seasons or people. And I had no idea in that season when I was in middle school, and I opened up a makeshift jewelry business when I was 13 with my best friend, because we like to make jewelry. That was the beginning of my entrepreneurial heart that God was going to continue to steward and light that fire later in my life. I had no idea that that's what that meant. Or I got married last year, and my husband is a pastor. Thank you. And, walking into this new season of a lot of what you're saying you faced as a child with your parents being in ministry, is now, a part of my life. And I can see even just how God's wired me, along the way throughout my life, preparing me for now, and so I think it's important for us all to see our story through that lens. And I think it gives us a greater sense of gratitude for, how God wires us and prepares us for, what he has planned for us. So I love that. I've heard you talk about a season a few years back where you went on the road with your sister, Jamie, which must have been like a total blast. And it was in that season that you got your first record deal. So like lots of life kind of happened in that season. So I've heard you share that, playing shows and standing on stages, that might be what a lot of people would find to be, a high and awesome, and all of that is awesome and great. But you share that it was the meeting people after the shows and having those conversations that really just lit your heart on fire. So would you talk about what makes this so exciting for you and, how you felt that kind of stir up in you what you're doing now?
Yes. As you mentioned, I ended up being on the road quite a bit with my younger sister, who also is very creative, and we're both musicians, and we grew up, especially in our teen years, playing a lot together, writing a lot of music together. However, I kind of got to this really strange place in my 20s because I felt like music was what I was supposed to be doing, because it was the most clear of like, okay, this is something you do. And that's something that I feel like everybody deals with in some capacity, is like how, you go to school and you look at your grades and you're like, oh, well, I make better grades in this than that, so maybe I want to go down that path. You have grown-ups that say, oh, you should go down this path because, you're doing this or doing that. So for me, music was that. I had a lot of people that I admired and that I respected saying like, you could do this, you could go down this path, and you could be a musician in this way. So I felt a lot of pressure and almost even a responsibility, like if other people are seeing this in me. And then, even if you think about it even deeper in a faith context, when you have people saying things to you like, God is giving you this gift, that's great. And it also just creates an enormous amount of pressure of just like, oh, okay, well, I have to use this. And this seems to be the only way to use it, to try to go on tour and to try to be an artist in this way. So for me, I was just like, you know what, even though I don't naturally feel drawn to a stage, even as a kid, I never ever saw myself on a stage. Like I just didn't see myself that way. And I would hear stories of other musicians of saying like, oh, I've had a microphone in my hand ever since I was 3 years old. And they're just natural performers. And it's when they're on stage, it's electrifying and it's connecting with people. And I was just like, I love it, but I'm not that. Why am I not that? And I found myself throughout, honestly, the first half of my 20s of just trying essentially to be something I was not, because I felt like that was what I was supposed to be doing. And at that time, I just wasn't able to zoom out enough to see that just because God has called you to be a creative and God has called you to make things and you've been created to make, that just because that doesn't mean that, doesn't mean that it has to look a certain way. Hindsight, it's like, well, of course, obviously, but when you're in it and you're trying to figure out what your career is and you've got bills to pay and all this stuff, that really became a huge part of struggle for me. It's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel confident in this. I don't feel competent, but at the same time, it's kind of, it's like, who am I not to be grateful for this? It's like, who am I to complain about traveling and playing music? So there are a few things that really kept me going through that season. One of the biggest things was just that after shows, I found that I could kind of take a deep breath. And that was when I got to talk with people one-on-one. That was my favorite part. Until this day, there are so many stories that I remember from that connection with people. And I realized that, I may not be able to figure out how to shift this thing around in terms of like a job or a career, but I was like, I at least enjoy this. And another thing was like, I love to write music, and I love to write lyrics, and I love to put thoughts and prayers and questions and all these things into words. And I was writing music while this was going on, but the way music works in most creative industries, it's not like you just create things and then you get paid to create them. So it was very hard because it was like, okay, I love writing songs, but I can't exactly just like throw them up on Etsy and somebody buys it for $50 or whatever. I was like, that's just not how it works. So it was a challenge, because like, okay, the things that I love to do not pay the bills. I was like, the things that I love to do, there seems to be such little time to even do them. So when I was 26, I kind of just had a breakdown where I was just like, I don't know what to do. It's like the things that, it was at a point where even the music stuff that I was doing, like the freelance, this touring, like with touring, you sometimes are just getting paid, per gig or just per thing that you do. And, you may sell some CDs in the lobby, you may not. And it was getting to a point where even that was just like barely enough to pay the bill. My husband is, at the time, he was a tour manager, and we were doing a lot of the same tours and stuff. But even for him, it was just like, okay, we're always exhausted. We're working every single weekend. And at the same time, it's like, what do we have to show for it? It was really tough. So we were both 26 at the time. We started trying different work things, and he started working in construction. I just started doing a bunch of random freelance stuff, anything I could find, like graphic design, editing, whatever it was. But even then, it was just still really, really tough. So when I was 26, I just kind of had this breakdown of like, oh my goodness, I think I've let everybody down. I think I've let my family down. Like, my parents have been so supportive of me. My husband has been so supportive of me. My sister has been so supportive of me. People have stuck their neck out for me to help me and to collaborate with me and help me and tell me that they believed in me and all this stuff. And I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like I've embarrassed myself, and just feeling all that at once. And I'm not much of a crier, but it was in November of 2016 when I was 26. I just broke down and cried, and just the weight of all of that just hit me. And I ended up writing a poem about that experience. And at the time, I don't even think I would have called it a poem. Like, at that time, it may have even been like a song without music. It was weird to just kind of have this experience of just writing this thing out that I was like, I don't know why, I just feel these words coming out of me. And the word said, when you start to feel like things should have been better this year, remember the mountains and valleys that brought you here. They're not mistakes, and those moments are not in vain. You are not the same. You have grown and you are growing. You are living, you are breathing, you are wrapped in endless, boundless grace, and things will get better. There's more to you than yesterday. And I wrote that out, and as I read it, I was like, I don't even know if I believe that right now. I'm like, sounds good, but I don't feel like there's more to me than yesterday. I feel like that's kind of it, And when I think back on that now, I'm like, I was 26 feeling that way. And I always think about other 26-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 18-year-olds who feel that way, thinking, oh, it's over for me because this didn't work out, that didn't work out, I transferred schools, or I didn't go to school, or this job didn't work out, this relationship didn't work out, all these things. And it just feels like it's over. And in that moment, I didn't realize that what I was talking about in that poem, so many other people feel that. It didn't feel that way. It actually felt really lonely in that moment. But I ended up sharing that poem, and I shared it on Pinterest, and I just kind of let it go. And I didn't add tags on it or anything. And then it was months later that I ended up finding out it had been shared over 100,000 times. And that was the beginning of January 2017. And that honestly launched into this whole, like, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't know if this is like a career or if it's just a hobby. I don't know. But I just feel like I just want to respond to these people that have found this point. So yeah, it really all kind of stems from that.
If you've ever taken your earrings off at the end of the day with that big sigh of relief, you need to hear about comfy earrings. Comfy earrings are flat back, hypoallergenic earrings designed for 24/7 wear. No poking, no irritation, just beautiful, lightweight earrings that stay comfortable whether you're sleeping, traveling, working out, or running from one project to the next. They're perfect for women with sensitive ears, and they come in so many gorgeous, everyday styles. Check them out at comfyearrings.com or through the link in the description. Refresh your jewelry box with earrings you'll never want to take off. Trust me, your ears will thank you. Now, back to the show. Looking for non-toxic, high-quality soap made by a company you can trust? Let me introduce you to Indigo Sundries, a Christian, family-owned small business that's been handcrafting soap for over 20 years. Every bar is made the old-fashioned way and free from seed oils, parabens, phthalates, sulfates, and all the other things your skin just doesn't need. Just clean, skin-loving ingredients that actually leave you feeling moisturized and refreshed. Whether you love a good fragrance, prefer essential oils, or need a simple unscented bar, Indigo Sundries has something for everyone, plus liquid soaps, room sprays, and beard products too. Get free shipping on orders over $50, and don't forget to use code Rebecca10 for 10% off at checkout. Treat your skin to the good stuff at indigosundries.com.
That is so awesome. I have so many things to say about all of this. So, a lot of our listenership are the people you're talking about. They're the people who feel God's given me this gift in some capacity to be a creative or an entrepreneur, or I feel called to start this thing. So the title of our show is Do the Thing Movement. And I think a lot of people experience those moments where we look at our lives or we look at the things that we're chasing after and we think, man, just like you, I love writing songs, but this doesn't pay the bills. Okay, Lord, like what does that look like in the future for me? And I love that you're just such a testament to God, over time, just really revealing that to you, what that's at least supposed to look like for the foreseeable future. And to think that for you, it was less than 4 years ago that you were at that rock bottom moment. And now, God has just launched you into this awesome career season where you're just being used by him to encourage people. I mean, even before we hopped on the phone, when you host a podcast, you get to talk to some of your heroes, right? And that's one of the greatest gifts to me of all of this. And some interviews, you connect really well with the person you're interviewing and it's super fun. This is one of those. Some others feel a little bit more forced. And then some of them just feel like, holy cow, I am meeting one of my people. And as I was listening to just some other people interview you before we hopped on the phone, I texted some of my friends and I said, it's really rare that I feel this way, but I just feel like I'm fangirling so hard because I'm just so looking forward to meeting her. Because just hearing your story, it reminds me so much of conversations that I have with people in our community and things like that. So I love that you're just like a living, breathing testimony of just being patient and letting God use your gifts. And so I love everything about that story. So next, I'd love to sort of talk about, you wrote this poem, which made like a major lump in my throat when you reread it to me. It's been a while since I've listened to it, but you went from that moment to realizing over 100,000 people have downloaded it on Pinterest. How did the season emerge that you're in now of you letting people share these really vulnerable stories from their journey with you and you sort of responding in that encouragement? Talk us through that process of where you got to where you are now.
Yes, when that point, and first of all, thank you so much for everything that you shared. That was just so encouraging to me. I don't love to hear myself talk, but I love to talk to people. So sometimes I forget about the fact that like, oh yeah, I've done podcasts and I've shared my story and things. Like it still feels new to me because I'm like, we've never met, and it's just such an honor to talk to you and hear that. So thank you. So I started to get messages from people after having shared this poem, and many of the messages were just in response to the poem. People were saying things like, I had a really tough year last year, and here's why, and here's how this poem really spoke to me. And that was honestly what that was kind of like the light bulb moment for me. Because before, even though it had been shared, I was being really, really cynical, because I was coming off of the heels of having been in the music industry where, just to be completely transparent, being a young artist, being a young woman artist, like there's so much pressure to be a certain kind of artist by a certain amount of time. And if you're not successful by a certain age, you can age out, quote unquote, and you don't get as many opportunities. So there's all this pressure and anxiety. And I was still kind of operating from that place of fear of, who am I to say anything? I'm not like the newest, I'm not the most exciting. And I was just, all this stuff was in my head. And really the thing that unlocked that for me was just reading messages from young women who were 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And I even take time to list out all those ages, because year after year, those experiences, they change. They're different every single year. And just hearing their stories, even just little snippets of their stories in my Instagram DMs, I was like, oh, wait a second. That's who I'm writing for. That's who I'm creating for. I'm not making things for some faceless person that I don't even know, that's in some executive office in New York or LA. I'm not making things for them. I'm sure they're a wonderful person, but I don't know them. I'm making things for the people that are right in front of me. And right now, the people that are right in front of me are, many of them were young women, and who had been in places where I had been before. And some of them were going through things I never even could have imagined, that were far worse than anything that I'd ever been through. And it was just such an humbling experience. I really believe that was a moment that God brought me back to the ground, like out of my head, out of the clouds of like, oh, I'm not good enough. It's like, yeah, you feel that way. And this is also true. There are people right in front of you. So what are you going to do with that? Honestly, from that moment forward, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to write poetry. I'm going to try to like put the poems on pretty paper and add filters. And I've got this iPad and I'll try to do little doodles on it. And I'm not a trained artist. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I make a lot of mistakes because I'm just trying things myself. And through that, that's what started. And the way that I kind of started to feel like, you know what, maybe this is my thing. Interestingly enough, it was when there were some particular people that I had kind of esteemed like as like, okay, I want to be like them, or I want to be in that in crowd. I want to work with those people. Some of those people started to unfollow me on Instagram. And I don't think it was like a harsh thing. Like, I think it was just like, they didn't feel like seeing Morgan's random art projects every day. I understand. I was such an amateur. I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't care. I was like, this is the first time in my life where people are unfollowing me. And I'm fine. Because I was like, it's fine. I wasn't writing for him. I'm writing for this girl. I'm writing for her. This is who it's for. 2017 was honestly like the year of just like, you know what? Maybe I'm going to be okay. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I might end up having to be broke for a little bit longer than I want to be, but I'll figure it out. I'll try some stuff. It's going to be all right. That was kind of like, it's really started to, yeah. I mean, it was so challenging because I still, I had no idea what I was doing other than just having a lot of fun. I was like, that's all I know is that this is fun. I like making art on my iPad. I like going to the craft store and buying paints and trying things. Like, this is just fun. Even if right now it's nothing more it's just for my mental health. I'm like, I need this. I need these markers. I need this paint. In October of 2017, that was where I kind of had, because I had been kind of going this whole year of just like, I don't know what this is, but I'm having a lot of fun. I love writing for people. I feel like I'm finally like connecting with people, similar to when I was after a concert where I'm standing in that lobby talking with a few, 3 or 4 people, I'm feeling that again. I feel that. And I just want to do more of that. So it was in October that it honestly, I feel like the idea came out of nowhere, but at the same time, I know it was just all of these things building up to this moment. I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll literally just make things for one person at a time. Like, that's what I'll do. And because I was getting these messages from people, and I mean, it wasn't like a ton. I didn't have like a ton of people following me, but it was enough to wake me up and to keep me inspired and to keep me like, okay, I don't know how to be a famous writer or a famous artist, but I do love to talk to people. I do love to hear people's stories. I do love to respond to these messages. And I still do that. I still try to respond to as many messages as I can. And I was like, yeah, I think that's the art. I think that's the project. It's just the messages. It's just the back and forth that I've been sharing with these people who have just so generously shared their story with me. I was like, the least I can do is just thank them for even, because it takes bravery to share your story. It takes courage to Instagram DM some random person on the internet and say, hey, something you made really inspired me. I'm reading this book right now where I'm like 3 chapters in, and I'm already like trying to craft my Twitter DM to her, because I'm like, this book is amazing. And
Yeah.
This DM has already gone through like 15.
Of course it has.
So, and it takes a lot. I'm somebody who shares stuff. I have followers and that kind of, and none of that stuff matters. Like, it's still really scary. It takes vulnerability to message someone and say, hey, something that you said really spoke to me, and here's why.
Yeah.
So that became how I started. And I was just like, I'm just literally going to make things one person at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to send it to them first. And then whatever else I share from that place, I'm essentially just CCing everybody else on what's already happened. That's what it is. And I thought that I would do this project for a few weeks turned into a few months. And here we are 3 years later. And that's still a part of my everyday practice. And constantly spending time with stories and conversations that I have with people, and finding the art and the beauty and poetry in that.
I love it. And I love how often I hear people like you, like us, say sort of a similar thing of sometimes the most beautiful work comes out of our own moments of vulnerability. So I think to go back to the moment when you wrote that first poem, that was extremely brave of you. That was extremely vulnerable of you to share it with the world. But it was that connected with over 100,000 people, and as I interview authors and just people who speak, write, etc., that's a common theme that you hear is, a lot of people's best work. I would argue your best work is going to come from those toughest moments that you just lean into that bravery and that vulnerability and you share, because that is what finds an audience, and it's in those moments where we're willing to be that vulnerable. We don't care about the people unfollowing us that we always wanted to work with. Yeah. They might not be our people, and that's okay. Yeah. But if you were to succumb to, somebody else's expectations or desires for you or things like that, and not lean into that truest version of yourself, that it's the opposite of that. It's when we lean into that we find our most true audience, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When the year first started, prior to COVID-19 and where we are now, I had actually just had my first 2 live events, poetry reading events.
Oh, cool.
And I was so nervous about it. Oh my goodness. I had to mentally prepare for these events for months. And I was just so nervous because I was kind of going back into that space again of being out there, kind of like back in the music world. And I was just like, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And I was just so amazed because I looked around the room in both cities. I did one in LA and one in Nashville. And I saw people that if we pass each other on the street, we would never have stopped to talk. We would never know each other. And yet at the same time, there was just like this collective sense of we're all in this together. Like in this room of 100 people, there's so many stories of suffering, of joy, of just a wide range of experiences in this one space. And yet here we are together, and yet here we are being present with one another. And I try to hold on to that a lot, because in that first room, I think it was about 100 people there. And in a room of 100 people, that's a lot of people. Like, it's like, well, to me at least. I mean, yeah. Maybe extroverts are like, no, it's not. But to me, 100 people, I'm like, that's a lot of people. You can cover a lot of ground with 100 people. And I've just thought about that in contrast to on social media, where it's like, if something gets 100 likes or if someone has 100 followers, we're like, oh, that's nothing. You know, that's not good. No, that is something. There's something so beautiful about connection and being able to connect with people. And I think that it's very important. It's been a very important part of my journey of realizing that that number might be significantly smaller than I think. Yeah. That number of people that I connect with, that I really come back to home base with, even if you get followers later, all those things, like, yeah, it's okay to have a small pool of friends. It's okay to have a community of like, yeah, I only have 2 or 3 people that I text, you know, we don't have to have this. And I think it's harder to see that in the age that we're living in, because there are just so many people everywhere. If you have any kind of social media platform, you know, so many of us we're following people we met last week, and also people we went to kindergarten with. And
yeah,
like, you know, it's like you're following an actor in a movie, and also your, you know, youth pastor. It's just so much. Like, it's a lot. It's like, oh, am I supposed to connect with all these people? Do I have to be all these places? And for me, I'm just finding the answer is no. Like, let's just focus on who's right in front of me in this season, and that's going to change season to season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could talk about that all day.
I agree.
I think it's where I am right now.
I so agree. And so I mentioned this earlier, but when I got married last year, I moved from Knoxville to South Mississippi, where my husband is pastoring here. And, you know, I kind of went through that season where you almost feel that pressure, like you're talking about, of, you know, I had this whole well-established community up in Tennessee. And then now I'm a pastor's wife in a new community with a new job, you know, in a whole new season. And yeah, I agree with you. I think there are people that are mile wide and inch deep type of people who they love having a lot of different friends and you know, spending time with a variety of different people. And I've had that in seasons and in spurts. And then I think there are inch wide and mile deep people who, you know, you have your home team of a handful of people, and that's a really special thing too. And I find now that that's kind of where I am with the friends that I had in Tennessee. You know, you pour into, you know, that handful, and you don't put that pressure on yourself to perform or, you know, keep in touch with every detail of every person's life. That's just not the reality that we live in. So I understand that pressure. Yeah.
I think that's a lot.
Okay, so I am super excited about this segment that I made up for our episode today. So I mentioned this before we hit record, and I thought, listeners, since I had the encourager of all encouragers on the show today, I thought what we could do is talk through a few of your stories. And I'm going to tell Morgan a little bit about you. And then I'm just going to allow her to just speak into your season of life as if y'all were just sitting across from each other at a coffee shop. And she was talking to you about kind of your current season. So the first member of the community that we have is Carrie. Carrie is age 24. And she's just in a different season right now. So we're all in the midst of the coronavirus together, but she's navigating, you know, what her next career step might be. She feels long-term that she's supposed to be in the classroom teaching and spending her summers doing overseas missions, which is something that she's extremely passionate about. she is also just trusting God for her future husband. And at age 24, she's in that season where all of her people are getting married, and she is putting on a lot of bridesmaids dresses, planning a lot of bachelorette parties that are not her own, which I myself have been through that season as well. So, Morgan, what would you say to encourage Carrie?
Wow, there are many things that come to mind, and I think the one that kind of comes up to the surface the most that I thought of was when you said long term, and I was just thinking about that word long, and I was like, and I'm speaking to her, like you're in this place where you're thinking about the long term. It's like, yes, okay, we all know we have to be present to the moment, present to this season, and at the same time it's like, well, as long as I'm still breathing, as long as I'm still here, there are going to be days to come, years to come, decades to come, and what is that going to look like, and how long am I going to have to wait for this? How long is it going to take for this to come together? How long? And that word just really came up for me, because, and then the next thing I thought was just this concept of long faithfulness. And I've never said that before, so I'm thinking about, I'm like, what does that even mean? It just kind of popped in my head. And I think it's just, for the long term, you're going to need long faithfulness. You're going to need to cultivate a sense of enduring, and it's very hard. And I've never been where you are, but one thing I do know is that where you are right now is that you have already been faithful in the long way. You have already been diligent. You have already been trusting. You have already learned how to wait. And yes, you may have more learning to do, but you must remember the foundation is already there. It's already here right now. So you don't have to wait and think, oh, I just need to become more faithful. I need to become more this or more that. It's like, no, you're already there. And you're there in a way that somebody like me, I'm not even there. So there's a unique way that you're where you are right now. There's a unique way that you're positioned in this season. Yes, it is so hard. And at the same time, it is also an enormous opportunity to go deeper and say, what is it that I'm meant to learn here? What is it that I am meant to see? And it might be something small. It might be something big. It might change day by day. But just know that possibility is still there. That room is still there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And then the second person is my mama. So my mom is a cancer survivor. She went through breast cancer back in 2014 and 2015. And she is, I don't know if you're an Enneagram girl.
I am.
Are you? Okay. So she's never taken the test, but she's a 2. She is a 2 wing 2, textbook Enneagram 2. She is a helper and an encourager. And so right now, for the last year or so, she has been volunteering in the cancer's treatment center where she went through treatment herself. And so there's this program where there are some volunteers that they come, they bring patients warm blankets, they sit down and talk to them, they bring them lunch while they take chemo, and she just really gets to be the hands and feet of Jesus to these people and some of their really tough days. And that has been so life-giving and so healing for her. But lately she's just really felt, maybe God is maybe calling her to a new season of encouraging people in a different way. We don't know what that looks like yet, but she's had a lot of time to think about it during all of this with the coronavirus. So how would you encourage her?
Wow. The first word that comes to mind is one that is, I'm definitely not the first to say this at all. And just thinking of your mom and what she's been through. And, that's just she is a survivor. She is a survivor, and in a way that many others, including myself, are not. And she knows things that I don't know. She's been in a place where I've never been. And at the same time, it's stories like hers. It's however she ends up sharing her story, and however she ends up sharing who she is, sharing her love with others, however that comes, it matters. It matters because where she has been, she's been in a valley that is hard to make sense of, I'm sure, even to this day, even as she meets others who are also walking that same journey. But I think that there's something to someone who, they've been through something, and you know it by how they are present with you and how they love you. I would just encourage her to know that just by being present with others, even if whether it's a nonprofit organization or whether it's a blog or a book or a quilt, who knows, whatever it is, whatever it is, even if it's just being present with someone, being that even, I do think about twos during this time, and people who sort of, like really thrive on being around others, and how challenging that is during this season. I'm an Enneagram type 5, so I have a slightly different experience with that. But I have a lot of compassion for my friends who are like, oh, this is a different space for them, because they're used to kind of connecting with people in a different way. And I just want to encourage your mom and anyone else listening who is a 2 or just in some way identifies with helping others and showing up in that way, of just knowing that even your silence on the other end of a phone line while someone else shares their struggle, what they're going through, is just as powerful as being able to show up face to face. Because you have a way of listening and holding space for people that it comes so natural to you that it might not even feel like much, but there are many people out there who are so blessed just by that. Yeah. So even just your ability to just be present, you might not even realize you're being present because it's so natural to you. But even that has such an enormous impact.
Yeah. I love it. And then our last one is Leah. So Leah is also age 24. Leah is also a big fan of your work. So I'm actually am friends with Leah's sister. Well, I'm friends with Leah, but Leah's sister and I talked, and this is going to be actually a special surprise for Leah. So she does not know about this, that we're talking today. Leah was diagnosed with a non-cancerous brain tumor that was removed on the day of her 1-year anniversary to her high school sweetheart last fall. And after 50 days in the neuro ICU and now going through inpatient rehab, she's now completing proton therapy treatment. So she's embracing this season with a lot of grace, but it has been super tough, but God's been so faithful. How would you encourage Leah?
I think the first thing that comes up for you, Leah, for me to you, Leah, is just, I don't know why the first word that came up is anniversary. And I think the reason why is because I was just thinking about when that word anniversary is put on the little card above the greeting cards in the store. Like, that's like a positive thing when it's, in the gift section, anniversary. And yes, anniversaries are great. And at the same time, for those who've been through what you've been through, even in those moments of joy, anniversaries are reminders of uncertainty and unknowns. So I think I would just say that it's okay to hold both the joy and suffering that comes with anniversaries, and that comes with a whole month just passed. And here's where we are. This is why that's hard, and this is why that's beautiful. And to just hold both of those things. And you may feel pressure from other people as the years go on, or as the days go on, to feel a certain way. I know that when people are faced with diagnosis or things, you have people who mean so well, and they want to check on you and see how you're doing, and oh, but look how far you come, or there's so many different ways that can go. So I just want to encourage you that no matter what the outside voices are, even the well-meaning people, even when people mean so well what they say or how they respond. You are still welcome to feel what you need to feel and take the time to heal. And there is space within grace to hold all of those things.
I love that. I love that. That's going to be such an encouragement to her. So, well, thanks for jumping in and encouraging some of my people in my community. So this is going to be a lot of fun for them. So before we sign off, I don't want to forget to talk about your new book that released this year. So you just released a book called All Along You Were Blooming, Thoughts for Boundless Living. So will you tell listeners about it?
Yes, the book is a full color book of poetry, and it is divided into 4 sections: heart, mind, body, soul. And I kind of see it as a way of just kind of taking a look at these different parts of our lives, of who we are and the questions we have and who we are created to be. Taking a look at all these things and not trying to find answers for every single little thing and fill in every single little detail of where we're going to go in life or what we're going to do next Tuesday, but just really looking at all of that and saying at the end of it, and all along we're blooming. And all along, all of this stuff is going on in my heart. You know, I've experienced heartbreak, I've experienced joy, different things going on through my mind. I'm battling anxiousness or restlessness, or I'm really excited or curious about this thing. And then just, you know, when it comes to our body, just the many questions or the many insecurities that we may have just in regards to body image and what we look like and how we are in the world. And then our soul and just those deep questions, those things those deep longings that we have, those desires of our heart, the desires that we feel in the depths of our soul, all of those things. I don't have answers for them, but I do like to write poems about them. And, you know, having written for a lot of people, I just wanted to create a collection of just saying, hey, there's space for all this stuff, all these things that we're feeling, and we're not alone in any of it. So yeah, that's All Along Here.
I love it. I love it. Well, listeners, if you have not already grabbed a copy of it, please run wherever you buy your books to get you a copy. So Morgan, how is the best way for our listeners to keep in touch with you?
Yes, so I'm on all the socials, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, all that good stuff. And I've actually really started to dig deeper into writing more on my blog. I don't have a fun name for it or anything. It's just morganharpernichols.com. I may come up with something at some point. But it's, I just, you know, I love to share on social media. However, it can be really short form. And in this season, I've just really been wanting to, let me just go a little bit deeper. And so, you can find me on social media and morganharpernichols.com.
Awesome. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for being my guest today. This has been such a blast.
Well, thank you. Thank you.